Good afternoon. If our panelists could please come up and take their seats. My name is David Butler, and I lead the sustainability team at Alltech, and I'm very happy to be here speaking to all of you today. I think we have a great session this afternoon. Kentucky, as we just heard, is near the bottom of the nation for solar energy capacity. But I think we're at a turning point. There are a lot of very exciting developments that are happening. And we have a great lineup of speakers who are going to help us really dive deep in those topics, see, where have we been, how much have we grown, that we have a lot of things to be proud of, and more importantly, what do we need to do next? So our first speaker is Kenya Stump, who is the executive director of the Office of Energy Policy in Kentucky's Energy and Environmental Cabinet. And she served in the cabinet and in state government in many different roles. She's had a very exciting career, and she's probably had a closer view of where we've come from on our solar capacity in Kentucky than anybody else. So it also gives her the unique ability to see where we're going in the future. So, Kenya.
I sympathize with Dr. Wright. I am 5'1", but I wore some shoes today to help me make it over the podium. I am Kenya Stump. I'm happy to be here. Amy Soner and I go back to the beginning of Bluegrass Green Source. It wasn't known as that, but I'm so happy to be here today and see a lot of familiar faces in the room. I do have a unique perspective, and I can say I'm very grateful for my government service and having the ability to give a look back, but also a look forward of where we are in terms of our energy landscape and how that landscape is transitioning. When I look back to 2001, we were 95% coal generation, and when I look to today, we're somewhere around 70%. Of our generation, we have 9% that are renewables, and I know we're here talking about solar today, but I don't have any favorite resource, so I just wanted to put some perspective on, we have such an opportunity with solar, but right now, most of our renewables are hydroelectric resources. They comprise 87% of our renewable generation. And when I say net generation, I'm talking about larger scale utility projects. At the same time, we've seen a large growth in our natural gas generation. And that is what we've seen across the nation as well. And with that, we've experienced an 18% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions. So from 2001 to 2020, Kentucky's dropped our GHG emissions by 18%. And that's tremendous progress, but I know for some it's not enough. And I think that's what we're going to hear as we look forward of how do we meet the challenges, because a lot of our growth has only occurred in the last 4 years. We've had tremendous growth at an unprecedented rate over these last few years. And just on the historical side, because I see my good friend, I thought John Cotton was here. So for my solar developer friends, on the smaller scale. When I started in the energy office in 2014, I was measuring what I call behind the meter solar in kilowatts. And most of that was down in the southeastern or southwestern part of the state because TVA had some programs that were really pushing it. So a lot of our solar was concentrated. Today when I look at our distributed generation, I'm measuring it in megawatts, and we're seeing a lot of large projects. Lexmark is the most recent project. Was so proud to work on that project, but it took us probably 10 years to bring it was ongoing discussions for maybe 10 years with Lexmark to bring that project. L'Oreal in Northern Kentucky is a great example of larger scale behind the meter solar. But this is also being driven by a similar theme that we heard earlier, choices, corporate choices. Where are we meeting that demand? And our demand for our renewables is driven by our strong economic growth, our corporate customers who are saying, I not only have sustainability goals, but a part of those sustainability goals are I have GHG reductions, I have renewable energy commitments, I have aggressive efficiency, and we're seeing the market respond. And so I think it's easy to talk about challenges. It's easy to talk about obstacles. Sometimes it's good to look back and say, we have made progress, and then say, how do we build upon that progress? Meaning, how do we use our natural resources in a way that is sustainable, increases our resilience, and enables Kentucky's economy to grow for the benefit of all of our citizens? And I think that's what we look at the Energy Office. That's what our new energy strategy that was released last fall focuses on, which is energy, environment, and economic development. I've got 5 minutes. So looking ahead, I'm not going to spoil the panel. We've got tremendous growth opportunities. We have around 3,000 megawatts of large solar pending construction and in the interconnection queue. And that presents some challenges that we're working through, land use considerations. But when we look at the impact of 3,000 megawatts on our 12 million agricultural lands, it's a very small impact. Maybe if we built everything, and that would be 12 gigawatts, and by no means do I think we're going to build 12 gigawatts in the next 4 years. But if we built everything in the queue, we're only looking at maybe a 1% impact to our agricultural lands. Now, the problem is that 1% gets concentrated into very few areas, and that's where the rubber meets the road when we start talking about community engagement, education and outreach, empathy, and having those hard conversations. I see a lot of opportunity in Kentucky, hydroelectric, our renewables, hydrogen, renewable natural gas, battery storage. I don't see one solution. I see multiple solutions. And the trick for someone like myself is, how do we optimize the best of all of our resources for the benefit of everyone in the Commonwealth? So I thank you for being here today. If you'd like to learn more, we have a lot of interactive data products on our website, Kentucky's Energy Profile. You can do a deep dive into our consumption and generation, how we've changed through the years. And I'd be happy to talk. I'm always happy to talk with anyone if they want to talk about Kentucky's energy landscape. So that's it for me in the Kentucky Office of Energy Policy. I guess now I'm going to turn it over to Adam. Is that next?
Thank you, Kenya. So our next speaker is Adam Edelen, and he has a very impressive bio. Actually, kind of has two impressive bios. He started out his career and focused on government, and he was the chief of staff for one of our former governors, and then he was state auditor. But more recently, he founded Edelen Strategic Ventures and Edelen Renewables, and he has a really interesting project that he's working on that I won't tell you about. I'll let Adam tell you about it.
This is terrific, by the way, and I'm glad I got here early because I got to hear the panel before us. I think I speak for all of us when I say the kids are all right. Thank you. You know, you think you're waiting for your opportunity to change things, to save the planet. You already are. Because, folks, when you see on the television at night, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, Anheuser-Busch, Walmart, Toyota, Ford, General Motors, all bragging about their sustainability goals, the vehicle by which they are accomplishing that is the virtual power purchase agreement. We won't get too deep into that. But that is a reaction to the market reality that young people are already driving market behavior. And for young people of all different stripes, it doesn't matter what they think about politics or healthcare or education, we have raised the first concrete generation of environmentalists. And the market is responding a lot. And that's a very big deal. It's the reason why more coal-burning plants retired under 4 years of Donald Trump than 8 years of Barack Obama, an inconvenient truth for some, but a reality. It's the reason why one of our terrific sponsors here today, Toyota, who produces the Camry, which has been the #1 selling sedan for like 4 billion years, is going to either be a straight EV or a hybrid in just 2.5 years. Folks, this isn't happening just because these big companies understand that they have a role in fighting climate change. It's happening because it's good business. And what we need are people who recognize that this dominant generation that is already driving market behavior, the millennials and the Zoomers, are a generation of environmentalists. And what they are doing at the very most basic level is that they are weaponizing capitalism to fight climate change. And we in Kentucky need to have the discussions as elected leaders, and thank God for people like Kenya Stump, our fantastic public service chairman. But for them and maybe a few others, we don't have enough people in Frankfort thinking about the just transition. We don't have enough people in Frankfort who understand that you cannot develop a modern economy without green energy, because the kids literally aren't buying it. And if we decide to seize this opportunity, if we decide to set our sails to go with this tremendous tailwind, we can create extraordinary opportunities of economy in places that haven't seen it in a long time. And so I'm Adam Edelen. I'm the founder of Edelen Renewables. We are a social impact solar development firm based in Lexington, Kentucky. Put up a big sign on a big building because I wanted people to know that Lexington is progressive, that Lexington has leadership that is committed to being relevant to the opportunities and challenges of the 21st century, that we can rise to the occasion to fight climate change. I'm developing a portfolio of projects, 19 projects in 11 states. I focus primarily on brownfield development with an eye and a mission towards leveraging new power to create a new American dream. Our mission at my company is to bring the promise of renewable energy to the forgotten places of America. And our approach in doing that is to form linkages, whether it's working with Kenya Stump and her shop or to work with the community and technical college or local elected officials to build things that leave legacy benefit for the community as a result of our work. And so the most concrete example of this, and it got us front page of the Sunday New York Times on January 2nd, is that we're reimagining a mountaintop removal site in Martin County, Kentucky, where we're going to make a $231 million private capital investment. We're going to build 700,000 solar panels to power 200 megawatts of renewable energy. The power has been sold. The whole system has been approved by the Public Service Commission, and the supply chain willing will be at construction later this year. But we've done the work to maximize the benefit to that local community. We just developed a protocol where we've got a hiring preference for out-of-work coal miners and Martin Countyans and others who have lost jobs with the disappearance of that economy. Because, folks, we cannot fight climate change if we're merely preaching to the choir. If we're going to meet this extraordinary moment in our history, we've got to expand the winner's circle created by green energy so people who weren't able to see for themselves a place in the new economy can. We've got to make more friends and be less threatening to others. And it means developers like me doing the hard work of getting in at the ground level and making sure that we find people who can work on these sites in those local communities, that we pay a significantly higher than average tax to the local community, that we make sure that the people who work on these sites get on-the-job training that they don't have to pay for, that they get paid for, so they can either go and work on other renewable energy projects in the region, or they can reimagine solar development and the skill set that is required thereof as the first or second rung on a ladder of economic opportunity. $231 million private capital investment, the biggest in the history of this part of eastern Kentucky. Jobs for 300 out-of-work coal miners, on-the-job training. They'll depart with a skills certification that demonstrates their relevance to a new economy. Folks, that is a win-win. That is what encapsulates social impact solar, a phrase that we have trademarked, because it just can't be about the cheapest cost of power. It just can't be about a set it and forget it mentality from the development community. This has got to be about doing the heavy thinking of figuring out how to build legacy benefit. My favorite attribute of this Martin County project is that we are demonstrating relevance for a community in a global economy that has been decimated by the 50-year decline of the coal industry, and we're doing it 4 miles away from where Lyndon Johnson launched the war on poverty. Folks, it sounds good because it is good, but we had to work like hell to make that story true. And so you want to know what you can do at a conference like this is we've got to deal with the reality that some of us are going to be drawn to church because we're fighting climate change. Others are going to be drawn because they see the economic development benefits. My question is, who cares? As long as we are actively engaging in trying to drive a just transition and we're trying to save the planet, I don't care what draws people there, because we have got to build critical mass. We've got to serve as a force multiplier. So when we go into Appalachia and talk to old coal miners who've lost their job about these new opportunities, of course we're going to talk about it that way. Because who among us believes that the very people who powered the industrial development of this country for 100 years should be left behind just because the economy shifted? That's a sort of social Darwinism that I don't think any moral person can apply to. But if we are creative, if we're innovative, if we understand that this is the greatest time to be alive in the history of innovation, in the history of driving a different approach, in the history of environmentalism, if we look at that and understand that which brings us together is bigger than these false divisions of economics, of race, of geography, of perspective. This is the biggest opportunity we've got to create a win-win that any of us will see at any point in our lifetime. You know, the new battery plants that are coming to E-Town and Bowling Green will both have to be powered 100% renewably on day one. Why aren't we telling that story? Why aren't our elected officials connecting the dots that you can't build a new economy unless you have access to new energy? We're not where we ought to be. The good news is the outcome is pre-settled. The outcome is predetermined. The economy is driving an ever-increasing adoption of renewable energy. But if we can get our leadership in Kentucky to begin to think about the economy in a new way, and to embrace the centrality that green energy will play in that, we can make Kentucky a national leader in green energy and therefore a national leader in saving the planet and developing a new economy. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Adam. Our next speaker is Mark Underwood. He's the lead electrical engineer at Lexmark, one of the big companies in Kentucky that's driving the change that Adam was just talking about and that Kenya was talking about. He's been with Lexmark a couple of decades, and he has an electrical engineering degrees from the University of Kentucky. And most excitingly, he's the project manager for Lexmark's new solar project that was announced recently. I'll let him tell you about that.
Okay, well, now that Adam's got you fired up, maybe I'll have a chance of keeping you awake for the next 10 minutes. So I want to make one small correction there. I'm not the lead electrical engineer for the whole company, just for the facilities department. But Yeah, my name's Mark Underwood, and I'm the electrical engineer for Lexmark Facilities, and they asked me to build this thing. I am actually the third string choice for giving this talk, not because Lexmark isn't interested, but because John Gagel, our Chief Sustainability Officer, and Leanne Dispinet, our Environmental Health and Safety Manager, are in Juarez, Mexico this week, as we speak, making plans for a pilot program, solar, down there at our plant in Juarez. So they get to do the doing right now, and I get to do the talking. So this is a rendering of our solar array that we will be building. It's a 2 megawatt unit. It's going to create 3.3 million kilowatt hours of energy. And it's going to be enough that, at least on a sunny, cold winter day, the Lexmark Lexington facility will be able to be off the grid with a tiny little asterisk. And I'll explain that later, but it will be enough to power us entirely on a cold day with a lot of sunlight. The company has been working for this, as Kenny said, for over a decade. It's been a long struggle, and I came in right at the tail end of it, so I get all the fun parts. Let's move along here. In case you're not familiar, Lexmark is pointing at this screen, the big green star up there on top, basically on the north end of Lexington, tucked in between New Circle Road and Newtown Pike. And this lower picture is our site, and the green star again is the area that we're basing in. This is a brownfield area. When IBM was here, they were building this electric typewriter and other products, and due to some of the manufacturing processes, there's a lot of chemicals that are in the soil in that area, and it's not suitable for, well, very much of anything. So we're doubly excited to both create something new with the solar and also reuse this land that's been damaged and is very difficult to put to a good purpose. So a few more details, again, the size of it. It's covered just shy of 8 acres of space. There's 5,000 panels. It is a fixed racking system, which means that the panels sit still, they don't move. You can have various versions of tracking, either 1-axis or 2-axis, where the panels can follow the sun like a sunflower, but these just sit there. We have the benefit of a nice clear view to the south, and nothing really blocking our access to the sun, so we were able to save some cost by going fixed. Because of the brownfield situation, we're using a ballasted support system, which means we literally have these gigantic buckets full of concrete that are holding the rack for the solar panels instead of driving supports into the ground. Piles, thank you. So this is it very much reminds me of when my parents decided that we were tipping the swing set too much, and so they sunk the legs of the swing set in buckets of concrete. This is basically exactly what we're doing. We'll have real-time monitoring of the system and be publishing some of the data that comes out of it. We're going to be doing a lot of research and development work with it as well. And we will be populating the field underneath the panels with local pollinator plants. And I'll mention something else about that later as well. Here's a picture of the racking system with the ballast buckets. It's very easy to adjust it for uneven ground, and since it's basically just sitting on top, it's pretty convenient. It is a little more expensive, but it's worth it. And since most of the electrical wiring can be routed on the rack, it's even less digging, trenching that we have to do. So we're able to do this with the soil largely untouched. I may just skip this one. This is the electrical drawing of how it all works. It's because I'm an electrical engineer. That's the part that interests me. But we have all the solar panels over here on your left, and they come in 16 rows that are then sent through these inverters, which are the third row of boxes there, that convert the DC energy from the panels into AC power electricity that we can use. It then flows through all of our control systems into the site electrical distribution where we actually use the energy. And I mentioned that asterisk on being able to power the whole site. And I also noticed back there on Slido, someone asked what is behind the meter solar. So I'll answer that. Behind the meter means that we're not pushing any energy out into the utility, into Kentucky Utilities. And we actually, in order to avoid that, will only allow the array to put out 90% of our load at any given time. We might go 95. The reason for that is because we are on distribution power instead of retail, so if we put energy out into the grid, we have to go through a whole bunch of regulatory stuff with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and all kinds of things to basically be certified as a utility, and that's beyond our scope. So we're going to be playing a few tricks to just stay just barely where we're not pushing any energy out. Retail customers have different rules, so if you're looking at something, you know, in your home or smaller business, then we are, you can avoid some of this. Okay, so I had a couple of lessons, and I see I have 5 minutes. Had a couple of lessons that I learned in picking up all of the work that Kenya and John and everyone had been doing on this that I wanted to share with you. And the first one is you got to build a coalition. I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make the return on investment work. And with the low utility rates here in Kentucky and some of the regulatory rules and things and the cost of solar, which has been fortunately going down, it's very difficult to just make the numbers work on a strictly, you know, we're not paying for energy anymore sort of basis. So what we did was you go through the whole company and you say, you know, the investors are calling for this because our competition is doing it. Senior management, of course, needs to listen to and finance need to listen to the investors. Our customers are asking for this. You know, what are your sustainability efforts, and are you doing solar, and questions like that are showing up on our bid proposal sheets with our very large customers, and they're expecting, especially in Europe, they're expecting, you know, us to say, yes, we're in this, we're doing this. So it becomes a sales and marketing issue, and you can get them on board by saying, hey, you can use this to, you know, engage customers that otherwise would be less interested. With facilities, it helps us to be able to manage our energy demands better. Research and development, the engineers are always excited to play around with something new, and this could also open up some new business opportunities in helping out solar companies with anything from management software all the way to recycling. And then, of course, there's the environmental angle. I mean, this whole thing started with it's the right thing to do. And I've heard everyone from the CEO down saying that phrase, it's the right thing to do. And the question is, can you put all of these pieces together to make that right thing work and be able to afford it for the business? Second thing, get help early. We had Kenya working with us forever. When we started actually putting together bid proposals and stuff, we engaged with Schneider Electric, and they had a couple of experts come in and help us with all of these things that we needed to do. They brought the expertise in to help us meet our goals and learn how to do this. And then Beanlink Solar is the contractor that we hired to actually construct the array. And once we selected them and put together a contract with them, they've been incredible. You can't do this by yourself, but there's plenty of people out there that will help you if you just go get them. And finally, involve the community, right? I mean, you know, you're looking at government, there's tax incentives, regulatory requirements, are kind of on both sides there, good and bad. You know, engaging with education. We've had talks with UK, Fayette County Schools, you know, bringing in students to, you know, create more opportunity to get some good out of this. Working with utilities to make sure that we're doing everything properly and we don't create any problems with our system, and that we get the maximum return out of it as well. And then there's other stuff, the symposium, education opportunities both for us to learn and for us to share, and talking with other companies who've already been there and done that, and learning from them. So what's next? Oh, there's my 10 minutes. Beekeeping and beer. So I mentioned the pollinators. We have a lot of Lexmark employees who do beekeeping, and a few current and former employees who are into the craft brewing industry here. So there's been talk of letting the bees get their pollen and letting the brewers get their honey, and having some fun with that. We have pilot projects in Juarez and Cebu. We've got education opportunities we're working on. Again, I mentioned the research and development. And our senior management is already saying, okay, we got 2 megawatts, what's next? How much bigger can we make this? How do we make it work? How can we figure out, how to afford it and get it done? Because it's the right thing to do. So I guess I only went over by a little bit, but I appreciate you all giving me a chance to talk about this. We're all very excited, and we greatly appreciate being invited today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and I'm sorry I'm not able to officially promote you to lead electrical engineer, but I tried. So we have a lot of great questions. We have about 10 minutes for questions, and I want to give you an idea of how some of the other sections are going to go this afternoon. Our next set of speakers will talk about agricultural land and how opportunities to balance agriculture and solar development. So our top ranked question there, I'm going to save that for that next section. And then in our last segment, we'll look at what needs to happen from a policy and solar industry perspective. So some of the questions might belong more in that area. But we have a really good one here. How do we keep corporate entities from inflating utility prices when transitioning to renewables, since current prices are related to labor and resource costs?
I guess I'll take that one. So I think in my tenure in the energy office, I've worked a lot with the Public Service Commission, and we've seen a lot of interactions between utility and corporate customers. I think the biggest word that we're concentrating on now is cross-subsidization. So a lot of what we see now on our large corporate buyers, and Adam mentioned virtual power purchase agreements, we have green tariffs now. The biggest thing about those options we have now is it allows the corporate entity to achieve its renewable goals without impacting the price that residential, commercial, and utility customers pay. In the past, a long time ago, not related to renewables, we had instances where we built certain types of generation for certain types of customers. And when those customers decided to leave or change, that impacted the price residential, commercial, industrial customers pay. So I think the biggest thing we've seen is in the past 2-3 years, more options for corporate entities to exercise as it relates to renewables, that it doesn't adversely impact our price competitiveness. And that's also important that we balance at the state government level, is how do we stay competitive yet green our grid, and also not just sustainability, but I also have to look at resilience. And if there's one lesson that I've learned is we can't be dependent on just one fuel. There's no perfect fuel out there. There's no perfect generating technology. Our job is to allow space that we have all of our options available that we can execute when we need them in order to have that fuel security, have that resilience, and have that sustainability while moving along a decarbonization pathway. Anything else, Adam?
No, you nailed it.
All right, I have a question specifically for Adam here. How do we influence a public service commission that's loaded with appointees from the utility companies themselves to pass eco-friendly policy?
That's a great question. I would point out that the Public Service Commission isn't even loaded with commissioners right now. Political games in Frankfurt, you want a demonstration of how broken the politics are in Frankfurt. We've got the Public Service Commission considering an enormous transaction involving a utility, AEP, who clearly wants to depart the Kentucky market. They're the largest coal burner in North America. And the company that wants to buy in is called Algonquin Liberty, who have made their reputation as being a firm, a utility that has driven the transition to renewable energy, right? It's an enormous deal for the ratepayers of Appalachia, for those of us who care about climate change. The majorities in Frankfurt in the legislature failed to confirm the governor's appointees. So we now have that decision is going to be made by one person, which is, he's a great guy. He's a good friend of mine, and he's with Kenya, one of the few big thinkers about energy in Kentucky, but he's going to do it alone. And so, folks, what we have to communicate, the Public Service Commission is a function of political power. What folks like us have to communicate in elections is that we are climate voters, we are energy voters, that we ought to believe, that we believe that the Public Service Commission ought not to be just a place where the utilities get half of what they want in terms of annual increases. And I can say this because I'm out of politics now, but that's been the generational reality for 50 years. And so we need to facilitate big thinkers and big conversation, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime economic shift. And you can't do it with one commissioner. I mean, I love Kenya, but you can't do it with one person in her cabinet whose job it is to think about this. And so we have to connect the dots. And politicians only feel the light when they see the heat, when they feel the heat. I can tell you, I've been one. But the reality is that Ford is making a $5 billion private capital investment in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and they're going to employ 6,000 people. That factory is going to come online in 25, and on day one, it has to be 100% renewably powered. You've got Toyota, who literally invented the sustainability commitment in the heavy manufacturing space, 12 miles from here. And you know, the frustration I have is that you've got so many young people, so many activists, so many corporate leaders who get that this is happening, and it is inevitable. It is a gravitational force, so we ought to decide to benefit from it rather than be run over by it. But our elected leadership, folks, is frankly out to lunch. And they're the same people who told our coal miners, you didn't have to be Nostradamus to see that the coal industry was in precipitous decline. But we told people that it was some other politician's fault in some other part of the country was the reason they lost their jobs. And now Appalachia is, with Indian reservations and the Mississippi Delta, the most economically distressed place in North America. It's a failure of political leadership. And so we got to demand better. And it starts with the people in this room. There will be a natural response to this because politics is a marketplace, and as young people vote in larger numbers, and their domination of the political market reflects their current domination of the economic market, things will get better. But this doesn't age like bourbon, it ages like milk. And we need to get to work right now.
Thank you. All right, Mark, I'm going to send this next question to you. If you can answer specifically thinking about Lexmark's system that you're working on.
Okay.
Where are these panels produced and how are they regulated? And what % of the energy generated goes back into Kentucky usage?
That's two questions.
Yeah.
You can take the panels, I'll take the other.
Okay. Well, so the panels, one of our requirements that our management put on the design is that they are made here in America by a company called First Solar. And so there was a couple of reasons for that. One is, supporting not exactly Kentucky, but local industry, but also there's a lot of problems with some of the foreign-made panels and their employment practices, and some of their environmental practices as well, and we didn't want to have any part of that if we could avoid it. So that was a very high priority for us to locate American-made panels that were made in as environmentally conscious way as you can make something that's made out of those sort of elements. I'll kind of answer the second question, then I'll kick it over to Kenya to give you the real answer. But how much of the energy that the panels are generating will be used, in Kentucky? Well, 100% of it will be, because none of it's going to leave Lexmark's campus. But all of the energy that we're not pulling from KU will be available for everyone else. I guess that's the best answer I can give. Kenya?
Okay, I'm on now. So in general, I'm going to speak very broadly about Kentucky's electricity generation, and that includes utility scale solar. So our history is we have been an energy hub, an electricity generation hub, powering and manufacturing things that have fed our United States economy. What some don't realize is because we have an interconnected grid, we're connected to wholesale markets, we're connected to other utilities outside of Kentucky. We have been an electricity exporter for a long time. Physics says a lot of the electrons get, John Cotton's going to remind me of physics here. Electrons flow and get used, where they're closest to the system. But because we're part of an interconnected grid and wholesale markets, our electricity generation is bought and sold in real time, meaning, a power plant in East Kentucky or in West Kentucky, they're buying and selling into wholesale markets and feeding the market's demand. It's not just Kentucky's demand. So that applies to our solar projects as well. Our merchant solars are utilizing the markets to buy and sell. That's not unlike what our utilities have done, who participate in those markets as well. So there was a question about what's one of the largest obstacles. I think it's an understanding and education, and I call it more energy literacy. And what I work toward is understanding how we produce and consume electricity is so important to grounding the conversation in terms of what options are available. If you understand, we've been an energy importer and exporter for a long time, then the conversation around solar kind of diminishes some, because it's just another resources that we're importing and exporting into our markets. Those markets have been tremendously beneficial for our corporate customers, for our utilities, and for our consumers in terms of our customers, in terms of what they've been able to save by reaping the benefits of participating in that kind of market. That's a long-winded answer of we've always imported and exported, and behind the meter will be used in Kentucky, but for Adam's project that are going into markets, it's part of, it's the groceries, it's the Whole Foods of like renewables up there. You're going in and you're making your transactions in the market, and you're serving a larger market that includes Kentucky, but is not just Kentucky.
All right. Thank you so much. We have a lot of great questions, but we need to take a little break right now. And so keep voting on the questions and pick your favorite ones. And there's one that I wish we had gotten to, and I'm going to encourage you to go up and ask Adam this question during the break. What did you mean by weaponizing capitalism? That's a great discussion. And so take 30 minutes, take a little break, and please go visit our exhibitors and network and talk to all of our sponsors and exhibitors. Thank you very much.